Over the next several days, Tanya observed as Lily worked tirelessly alongside the Zalarian scientists. Her presence initially tolerated, then gradually accepted as her ideas began to show promise. In preliminary tests, the human had created what she called a soil probiotic, a mixture of microorganisms from Earth modified to survive in Zalarian conditions. Test plots treated with the mixture showed remarkable results. The blight bacteria reduced by 60% within days. Healthy plants beginning to recover their purple color, brightening the beneficial organisms, creating a hostile environment for the pathogen. Without harming the grain director, Cora had gone from skeptical to cautiously optimistic, even recommending to the High Council that Lily's approach be implemented on a larger scale. But not all were convinced. High Counselor Vex arrived at the research facility unannounced, his imposing figure causing scientists to bow hastily as he strode through the laboratories. Tanya stiffened at his appearance. Vex was known for his traditionalist views and his distrust of all off-worlders. "I have come to see this miracle cure," the counselor announced, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent laboratory. Lily, who had been working at a terminal, looked up without showing the fear most displayed in Vex's presence. She stood and bowed slightly. "Counselor, welcome to our research space. Would you like to see our results?" Vex repeated, his upper lip curling. "You claim credit for the work of Imperial scientists, no?" Lily said calmly. "This is collaborative research. Your scientists have contributed invaluable knowledge about Zalarian ecosystems, without which my Earth-based approaches would be useless." "Director," Cora stepped forward, "the results are promising, Counselor. We have documented recovery and test plots treated with the humans. Bioremediation formula. We believe it could be deployed across agricultural zones within a lunar cycle." Vex made a dismissive gesture. "I have reviewed your reports and find them lacking in scientific rigor. This human offers primitive solutions that may work in small tests, but could never scale to Imperial needs." Lily took a deep breath. Tanya could see her controlling her response before speaking with careful politeness. "Perhaps you'd like to see the test fields yourself, Counselor? The results are quite visible." Reluctantly, Vex agreed. They donned protective suits and moved to the testing area, where plots of land had been treated with various formulations. The difference was striking. The untreated areas remained black with disease, while treated sections showed gradually improving health. The most successful test plots nearly restored to their natural vibrant purple. "This proves nothing," Vex said, though. Tanya noticed his eyes lingering on the healthy plants. "A temporary improvement, perhaps, or a statistical anomaly." Lily pointed to a monitoring station. "These readings show the bacterial count decreasing steadily in treated soil while increasing in control plots. The trend is clear and consistent across all test groups." For over an hour, Vex questioned the human, demanding explanations for every aspect of her approach, challenging her credentials, her methods, her understanding of Zalarian agriculture. Lily answered each question with patience, never showing frustration. Even when the counselor repeated himself or deliberately misinterpreted her words, Tanya found herself impressed by the human's composure. Faced with such hostility, she herself would have struggled to maintain protocol had a superior questioned her in such a manner, finally seeming to run out of criticisms. Vex turned to Director Cora. "You may continue these experiments," he said, his tone suggesting he was granting a great favor. "But I remain unconvinced this human brings primitive methods that would return us to the soil, scratching days of our ancestors. The High Council will require much more evidence before approving full implementation." After he departed, Lily let out a long breath, her shoulders sagging slightly. "That was intense," she said. Director Cora made a gesture of apology. "Counselor Vex represents the traditional faction. They believe in technological solutions, not biological ones, especially not those from a species as young as yours." Lily smiled faintly. "Well, we are pretty young compared to you. But sometimes youth has advantages. We haven't had time to forget the lessons nature taught us." That evening, as Tanya escorted Lily back to her quarters, the human was quieter than usual, her face showing signs of fatigue. "Are you unwell?" Tanya asked, noticing the human's slower pace. "Just tired," Lily admitted, and a bit discouraged. "I knew there would be resistance, but Counselor Vex seems determined to reject our solution regardless of evidence." Tanya hesitated, then spoke with unusual candor. The counselor has investments in synthetic food production companies if the blight continues demand for synthetics. Will increase. Lily's eyes widened. Politics is the same everywhere it seems. They had reached the humans' quarters, but instead of entering, Lily turned to Tanya. Would you join me for a meal? She asked. I have some food from Earth I brought to share, and honestly I could use the company. The request was unexpected. Guards did not socialize with those they protected. It was against protocol. Yet Tanya found herself curious about Earth cuisine and about this human who faced imperial disdain with such calm confidence. I would be honored, she said formally. Though regulations require, I must taste any food before you consume it. For safety. Lily laughed. That works out perfectly then. Inside her quarters, Lily retrieved a container from a storage unit unpacking items wrapped in preserved leaves. These are called tamales. She explained, a traditional food from a region of Earth called Mexico. I had them specially prepared for the journey. Tanya watched as Lily unwrapped the leaf covering, revealing a steamed mass of some kind. It's corn dough filled with vegetables and spices. Lily said, offering one to Tanya. Try it. Cautiously, Tanya took a bite. Her sensitive taste receptors immediately overwhelmed by unfamiliar flavors, sharp, spicy, sweet, all at once. The texture soft yet substantial. She had never experienced anything like it. Xelarian cuisine was precisely balanced, nutritionally optimal, but without such intensity. This is, she struggled to find the appropriate word, interesting. Lily smiled. I thought you might say that it's very different from your food. I know we humans tend to favor flavor over nutritional efficiency. They ate together. Lily explaining Earth food traditions, how meals were social events, not just necessary nutrition, how families gathered to share food and conversation. The concept seemed inefficient to Tanya, yet strangely appealing. Lily asked about Xelarian customs, and Tanya found herself explaining more than she had intended about the rigid hierarchy of imperial society, the genetic testing that determined each child's future at birth, the absolute loyalty expected from every citizen. So you never chose to be a guard? Lily asked. It was selected for you. Tanya nodded. My genetic profile showed aptitude for protection, services, high reflexes, strong loyalty indicators, superior physical capabilities. I was assigned to the Royal Guard training program at age 3. And if you had wanted something different? Such thoughts are not productive, Tanya replied automatically. Then, seeing Lily's expression, added more honestly, sometimes I wondered what it would be like to explore beyond the Empire, to see other worlds not as a conqueror, but as a learner. The admission surprised her. She had never spoken such thoughts aloud. Disloyalty to one's assigned purpose was not tolerated in a Xelarian society. Lily nodded thoughtfully. On Earth, we believe choice matters, that people perform best when following their own interests, their passion. But I can see how your system provides stability, certainty. They continued talking long into the night, Tanya finding herself increasingly comfortable with the human asking questions, sharing thoughts. The experience was novel, yet somehow natural, when she finally left to return to her own quarters. Tanya realized she had spent hours engaged in what humans would call conversation, not the formal exchanges of information typical among Xelarians, but a meandering exploration of ideas and experiences. More troubling still, she had enjoyed it. The royal guest quarters were luxurious by any standard. The walls lined with living crystal that changed color based on the occupant's mood. The furniture grown rather than built from the finest bioreactive materials in the Empire still. Tanya wondered how the human would react to accommodations designed for beings twice her size. Lily walked around the room, touching the surfaces with obvious fascination. This is beautiful, she said, her 5-fingered hand tracing patterns on a wall panel that rippled with blue light in response to her touch. Is it alive in a way? Tanya replied, it's crystal infused with bioneural matter. It responds to presence and emotion. All royal chambers are equipped with such amenities. The human female smiled, a gesture Tanya was starting to recognize as her default expression when learning something new. Fascinating. On Earth we have smart homes, but nothing like this that actually responds to feelings. Tanya found it strange that the human seemed impressed. Xelarian technology was superior to that of most species in the galaxy, but humans were particularly primitive, barely a century into faster-than-light travel. Yet this one spoke as if she were a curious equal, rather than an awed inferior. There is a nutrition chamber, through that archway, Tanya explained, and a cleansing pool beyond the earth foods you requested have been synthesized, based on specifications from your government. Lily thanked her, then asked, "Do you have time to answer some questions? I want to understand more about Zalarian culture if I'm going to help." The request surprised Tanya. She was a guard, not a cultural ambassador, but the Queen had ordered her to accommodate the humans, reasonable requests within security parameters. "Very well," she said stiffly. "What do you wish to know?" The human sat on a cushioned platform, her legs folding beneath her in a way Tanya found strangely flexible. "Tell me about your people before the crop failures. What was life like?" The question was oddly personal, not focused on political structures or military capabilities as most diplomatic inquiries were. Tanya hesitated, unsure how to respond. Xelaria has been the center of galactic power for 10,000 cycles. She began reciting the standard history our empire spans, 20 star systems with tributary relationships to 30. More, our technology is unmatched, our military undefeated. Lily nodded, but her expression suggested this wasn't what she had asked. "No. I mean, what was daily life like for ordinary Zalarians? What do children do? How do families live? What brings your people?" Joy. Tanya repeated the word as if it were foreign. Zalarians find satisfaction in duty, in service to the Empire. Children are raised in education centers, from birth trained according to their genetic predispositions, some for science, some for military, some for administration. And families, she asked, we reproduce when genetic matching indicates compatibility. Tanya explained, offspring are raised collectively to maximize efficiency and ensure proper integration into imperial society. The human frowned slightly but said nothing. Instead, she asked what happened when the crops began to fail. How did it affect everyday people? Tanya had not expected this line of questioning. Most visitors to the Empire were interested in trade agreements, military alliances, or technological exchange, not the welfare of common citizens. "The purple grain is our primary food source," she explained after a moment. "It cannot be replicated fully in food synthesizers. It requires too many complex compounds. When the blight began 2 cycles ago, rationing was implemented, but reserves are now critically low. If the blight is not stopped, soon, the Empire will face widespread hunger for the first time in recorded history, and that's why I'm here," Lily said softly. "Despite our differences, despite the fact that my species is considered primitive by galactic standards." Tanya nodded. "Hunger makes for unusual allies." The human laughed, the sound bright and unexpected in the formal atmosphere of the palace. "Well put," she said, standing and stretching her limbs in a way that seemed almost indecent to Tanya. "I should rest before tomorrow. The time differential between our worlds takes some getting used to." Tanya bowed slightly and turned to leave, but Lily called after her. "Thank you for answering my questions, Tanya. I look forward to working with you." The words were simple, yet they triggered an unfamiliar sensation in Tanya. A warmth she could not name. The next morning, Tanya arrived to escort the human to the agricultural research facility. Lily was already awake and dressed in a simple outfit of blue and white fabrics that covered most of her body, unlike the elaborate layered garments Zalarian nobility wore. The research facility was located on the outskirts of the capital, a massive complex of domed buildings and experimental fields. Here, the Empire's greatest scientific minds had worked tirelessly for 2 cycles to combat the blight that threatened their civilization. Director Cora met them at the entrance, her tall form draped in the white robes of a master scientist. Her expression cold as she regarded the human. "Welcome to the Imperial Agricultural Research Center," she said without warmth. "I understand you believe you can solve a problem that has confounded our best minds." Lily either did not notice or chose to ignore the hostility. "I hope to help," she replied. "I'm eager to see your research and your testing fields, Director." Cora led them through the facility, explaining the extensive work already done. The bacteria had been isolated, studied its genetic structure, mapped. Countless treatments had been tested, from radiation to chemical compounds to genetic modification. Of the grain itself, nothing had worked. The bacteria adapted, overcame every solution. Tanya watched as Lily listened, asked questions, occasionally making notes on a small device she carried. The human seemed genuinely interested in understanding, not dismissing the Zalarians' efforts. Finally, they reached the testing fields visible through massive transparent walls, rows of purple grain in various stages of infection. "May I go out there?" Lily asked. "I need to see the soil up close." "Director." Cora hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "There is no risk to you. The pathogen only affects plant life." They donned protective suits despite the director's assurance of precaution. Tanya insisted upon, then entered the field. The smell hit them immediately, even through the suit's filtration systems, the sickly sweet odor of rotting vegetation. Lily knelt in the dirt, scooping a handful into a container she had brought, then moved to another area, and another, taking samples from infected areas and the few patches where healthy plants still grew. After collecting multiple samples, she straightened. "This is enough to begin. I need access to a laboratory now." The directorate looked offended. The human had spent barely 30 minutes examining the fields. Not the hours. The Zalarian scientists dedicated daily to observation. "You cannot possibly have learned anything meaningful in such a short time," she said. Lily met her gaze. "We will see," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "I need to analyze these samples using both your equipment and some methods I brought from Earth." Reluctantly, Director Cora led them to a laboratory, assigning a workspace to Lily, while Zalarian scientists continued their work nearby, casting suspicious glances at the human. For hours Lily worked, examining soil samples under microscopes, adding substances from small vials she had brought, comparing results. Tanya stood guard watching as the human moved with purpose, her face serious for once. No smile visible. At one point Lily called Director Cora over, showing her something in a sample. The director leaned close, her expression shifting from dismissal to surprise to reluctant interest. More Zalarian scientists gathered around as Lily explained her findings. Tanya could not understand the technical terms, but she recognized the change in the atmosphere from hostility to cautious curiosity. "Look at the soil structure," Lily was saying, pointing to an image displayed on a screen. "Healthy soil should be teeming with life, microorganisms, fungi, beneficial bacteria. They create a living network that supports plants and fights off pathogens, but your soil is almost sterile except for the blight bacteria. There's nothing to keep them in check. But our soil management systems are designed to eliminate harmful organisms," Director Cora said. "They have been perfected over thousands of cycles. They eliminate all organisms," Lily corrected, "not just harmful ones. You've created a perfect environment for any pathogen that manages to gain entry. It has no natural enemies, nothing to compete with." The director frowned. "That's a primitive approach. Nature is chaotic, unpredictable. We prefer controlled systems." Lily nodded. "I understand. But sometimes the chaos has a purpose. The unpredictability creates resilience. What I'm suggesting is finding a balance, reintroducing beneficial organisms while maintaining some of your management practices." As the scientific discussion continued, Tanya found herself watching the human with new interest. This small creature from a backward planet had identified something the Empire's greatest minds had overlooked. Perhaps there was more to humans than Zalarians had assumed. The following weeks brought dramatic changes to the Agricultural Research Center. As Lily's methods proved increasingly successful, large-scale tests were implemented across multiple growing regions with promising results. The soil treatments worked exactly as the human had predicted, gradually restoring balance to the damaged ecosystem. Queen Zara herself visited the research facility to observe the progress, her presence causing a stir among the scientists who rarely saw the monarch outside. "Formal functions. Impressive," the Queen said as she viewed the comparison holograms showing treated fields gradually returning to health, while untreated ones continued to decline. "You have done what our best minds could not." "Human." Lily bowed her head. "Slightly. Thank you, Your Majesty. But this was truly a collaborative effort. Your scientists contributed essential knowledge about Zalarian biology. What I've offered is simply a different perspective." The Queen studied Lily with her large golden eyes. "Humans are curious creatures," she observed. "We had reports of your species' primitive technology, your fractious politics, your emotional decision-making. Yet you have solved a problem that threatened our entire civilization with elegantly simple methods. We have our strengths, Lily replied diplomatically. Perhaps being younger as a species means we still remember what it's like to struggle against nature rather than try to completely control it. The Queen's upper lip quirked in what might have been amusement. A diplomatic answer indeed. After the royal visit, the implementation of Lily's remediation plan accelerated, with Imperial resources now fully committed to the project. Fleets of agricultural drones deployed the soil treatments across the Empire's farming worlds. Scientists modified the formula for different planetary conditions. Tanya continued her assignment as Lily's security detail. Though the nature of their relationship had shifted subtly, they spent hours in conversation during transport, flights to various agricultural zones, and in the evenings after work was complete, Tanya found herself sharing more about Zolarian society than protocol strictly allowed, while absorbing Lily's stories about Earth and human culture. One evening, as they returned from inspecting a newly treated field, Lily asked a question that caught Tanya off guard. "What will you do after I leave when the project is complete?" Tanya had not considered this. Her assignment would end. She would return to regular guard duties. The human would go back to her own world. The thought created an unexpected sensation of loss. "I will serve where the Empire requires," she answered formally. Lily gave her a look that Tanya had come to recognize as seeing through diplomatic responses. "What would you choose if the choice were yours?" Again, that dangerous question of choice. Tanya remained silent for a long moment before answering. "If I could choose, I would like to learn more about other worlds. Perhaps serve as a diplomatic guard on exchange missions." "Why haven't you requested such an assignment?" Lily asked. "Exilarians do not request," Tanya explained. "We are assigned according to need, and genetic suitability to question one's assignment suggests dissatisfaction with the Empire's wisdom." Lily frowned slightly, a characteristic expression when she encountered aspects of Zolarian culture she found troubling, but she did not criticize. Instead, she said thoughtfully, "The cultural exchange program being discussed between our worlds will need security personnel familiar with both cultures." The implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Lily was offering to request Tanya for such a position if formal relations were established between Earth and the Empire. The offer was both tempting and frightening, suggesting a future Tanya had never imagined for herself. Before she could respond, their transport was rocked by a sudden explosion, alarms blaring as the vehicle swerved violently. "What was that?" Lily gasped, grabbing onto a support rail to steady herself. "Ambush," Tanya responded instantly, her training taking over. She pulled her plasma blade from its sheath, activating the glowing weapon. "Stay behind." Method transport lurched to a stop, its engines powering down, emergency lights casting an eerie blue glow through the cabin. Tanya moved to the front, checking on the pilot, who lay slumped over the control shiz unconscious. She reported checking his vital signs. But alive, the transport's communications are damaged. Through the viewports they could see three figures approaching, wearing the distinctive armor of the Purist faction, a radical group that opposed all contact with off-world species, particularly humans, whom they viewed as a contaminating influence. They must have used an EMP weapon to disable the transport. Tanya explained, "They want to capture you, possibly to stop the implementation of your agricultural plan, or to use you as leverage." Lily paled, but her voice remained steady. "What do we do?" Tanya assessed their options quickly. The transport was disabled in an isolated area between the research facility and the capital. Backup would come eventually when they failed to arrive. But that could be hours. "We have two choices," she said. "We can barricade ourselves inside and wait for rescue, or we can attempt to reach the emergency shelter. 2 kilometers from here, the Purists will break in eventually, won't they?" Lily asked. Tanya nodded. The transport hull would resist for perhaps 30 minutes before the attackers' cutting equipment penetrated. "Then we run," Lily said simply. The decision surprised Tanya. Most off-worlders would choose the perceived safety of the transport, rather than risk the open terrain. "There is a maintenance hatch on the underside of the transport," Tanya explained. "We can exit while they focus on the main doors, but once outside, we will be exposed and vulnerable." Lily nodded, understanding the risk. "I'm ready." Tanya guided her to the floor hatch, using her override codes to unlock it. She checked the exterior view. The attackers were still focused on the front of the transport, cutting equipment beginning to glow as they worked on the main door. "Son, my signal," Tanya whispered. Wait until they are fully engaged, then we drop and run. Stay close. Moments later, the attackers began cutting in earnest, the bright flare of their equipment providing the distraction Tanya had hoped for. She opened the hatch and dropped through, landing silently. Despite her height, Lily followed less gracefully, but without making noise. They crouched beneath the transport, hidden from view by its bulk. Tanya pointed toward a line of tall purple vegetation about 50 meters away. Their first cover. She held up 3 fingers, counting down silently. 3, 2, 1. They ran Tanya's longer stride, measured to allow Lily to keep pace, the soft soil muffling their footsteps. They reached the vegetation without being spotted, ducking into its concealing height. Lily was breathing hard, the exertion and fear taking their toll. But she nodded at Tanya's questioning look. Indicating she could continue, they moved through the field, keeping low, using the plants for cover, working their way toward the distant shelter. They had covered perhaps half the distance when shouts erupted behind them. The purists had discovered their escape. Tanya heard the distinctive whine of hover units powering up the attackers' head transport. "We need to move faster," she said urgently. "The shelter has defensive capabilities, but we must reach it before they intercept us." Lily nodded grimly, increasing her pace despite obvious fatigue. They broke from the cover of the field, crossing an open stretch of land that left them exposed. Tanya heard the hover units growing closer, almost. There she encouraged as the shelter came into view. A small bunker built into a hillside for exactly this type of emergency laser fire scorched the ground near them. The purists now close enough to engage the energy weapons designed to incapacitate. Rather than kill, they wanted Lily alive. Tanya made a split-second decision. Spinning around, she activated her plasma blade, deflecting the incoming fire back toward their pursuers. The maneuver bought them precious seconds to reach the shelter doors. She slammed her palm against the security panel. Her genetic signature recognized instantly, the heavy doors sliding open just enough for them to slip inside before sealing shut behind them. Emergency lighting activated as the shelter systems came online. Lily collapsed against a wall, breathing heavily, her face flushed with exertion. That was, she gasped, too close. Tanya activated the communications array, sending an emergency signal to Imperial security, then checked the shelter's defenses. The purists were surrounding the bunker, but its walls would withstand anything short of military-grade weapons. "You saved my life," Lily said once she had caught her breath. "I performed my duty," Tanya replied automatically, then added more honestly, "I could not let them harm you." Lily smiled despite their situation. "I think we make a good team." The words triggered that same strange warmth Tanya had been experiencing more frequently in the humans' presence, a feeling that defied Imperial conditioning, something that felt dangerous yet right. The shelter sensors indicated Imperial security forces were approaching. The purists soon scattered, not willing to face the Empire's elite guards within minutes. Rescue had arrived, the door opening to reveal a squad of Tanya's fellow guards. They were escorted directly to the palace where Queen Zara awaited news of the incident, her face showing rare emotion. When Lily and Tanya entered the throne room unharmed, "We feared the worst when your transport was attacked," the Queen said. "This assault on an honored guest will not go unpunished." Tanya gave a formal report of the incident, emphasizing Lily's courage and quick thinking during their escape. Though protocol dictated she focused solely on relevant tactical information, she found herself wanting the Queen to know how well the human had performed under pressure. The attack on Lily accelerated rather than hindered the implementation of her agricultural plan. Public opinion turned strongly against the purist faction, their tactics viewed as dishonorable and dangerous to the Empire. Even Councillor Vex publicly distanced himself from their ideology, though Tanya suspected he privately shared some of their views. 2 cycles after Lily's arrival, the first full harvest of treated fields was gathered, the purple grain abundant and healthy, analysis confirming it was free of contamination and safe for consumption. The Empire would not face starvation. A formal ceremony was planned to honor the human before her scheduled return to Earth. Tanya had been busy with security arrangements, ensuring no further incidents would mar the occasion, but found herself distracted by thoughts of Lily's imminent departure. The night before the ceremony, Tanya visited Lily's quarters, finding the human packing her few possessions. "You are prepared for tomorrow?" she asked. "Formally, Lily looked up and smiled. It's hard to believe 3 months have passed so quickly. The agricultural project is fully implemented. Your scientists understand the principles. Now my work here is done. Tanya nodded, feeling strangely uncomfortable. With the human's matter-of-fact tone, the Empire is grateful for your service. Lily set down the item she was holding and approached Tanya. And what about you? Are you also just grateful for my service? The directness of the question was typical of humans, but still caught Tanya off guard. Protocol dictated a formal response, yet she found herself unwilling to hide behind imperial etiquette. I will miss our conversations, she admitted. Our time together has been educational. Lily laughed, the sound still fascinating to Tanya after all these weeks. Educational, that's very Xalarian of you, is that? Not an appropriate sentiment. Lily shook her head, still smiling. On Earth, when someone has shared experiences like ours, facing danger together, learning from each other, spending hours in conversation. We might say something more personal like, I value your friendship, or even I will miss you. The concept of friendship was not unknown to Xalarians, but it was considered a juvenile attachment, something children experienced before proper imperial conditioning took hold. Adults had colleagues, subordinates, superiors, not friends. Such emotional connections were seen as potential weaknesses, distractions from duty, yet Tanya could not deny the accuracy of the term to describe what had developed between herself and this humanity. Will miss you, Lily, she said, testing the phrase, finding it both uncomfortable and strangely satisfying. Our time together has changed my understanding of humans and perhaps of Xalarians as well. Lily's expression softened. I will miss you too. Tanya, more than I expected to when I came here. The admission created a complex emotion in Tanya. Pleasure at being valued, sadness at the imminent separation, confusion about these very reactions that seemed to contradict her training. What will you do when you return to Earth, she asked. Lily smiled. Continue my work as a xenobiologist, studying interplanetary agricultural systems, but now with the unique experience of having worked with the mighty Xalarian Empire. She paused before adding, and I hope to be part of the official cultural exchange program. If it's approved, I'll be recommending it strongly to my government. The exchange program remained under consideration by both governments, its approval not certain. Despite the successful agricultural collaboration, the Empire was traditionally cautious about allowing outsiders extended access to Xalarian society, and humans were still viewed with suspicion by many. The ceremony the next day was conducted with imperial grandeur in the Great Hall of the Palace High Council. Members, nobility, and scientific leaders gathered to witness the unprecedented honor being granted to a human. Queen Zara herself presided, dressed in formal regalia, the crown of the Empire glittering on her head. Tanya stood at attention near the throne, her formal guard uniform polished to perfection, her face an impassive mask hiding the turmoil of emotions beneath. As Lily was escorted to the center of the hall, the human looked different today, dressed in formal attire provided by the Empire adapted to her smaller frame. The deep purple of the royal house signifying the highest honor, a formal acknowledgement that she had served the throne. Directly, Queen Zara stood as Lily approached the throne, the human kneeling as protocol required. Lily Baker of Earth, the Queen intoned her voice, carrying to every corner of the vast hall. You came to our empire as a representative of a young species, offering help when we faced a threat to our very existence. Your knowledge has saved countless lives. Your methods have restored our agricultural systems. Your courage has been proven, even in the face of those who wished you harm. The Queen gestured, and an attendant stepped forward carrying a small box. The Star of Xalaria is our highest honor, rarely granted even to our own people, never before to an off-worlder. It signifies exceptional service to the Empire, service that transcends boundaries of species and worlds. He removed from the box a crystal pendant that seemed to contain a captured star, its light pulsing with inner fire. Rise, Lily Baker of Earth, and receive this honor. Lily stood as the Queen placed the pendant around her neck, the crystal glowing brighter as it touched her skin, responding to her life force as Xalarian technology often did. I accept this honor with gratitude, Your Majesty. Lily said, her voice clear and steady. Not just for myself, but for Earth and for the spirit of cooperation between our worlds that made this success possible. The Queen nodded in acknowledgement, then spoke words that caused a murmur of surprise to ripple through the gathered crowd. The High Council has deliberated and approved the establishment of a permanent cultural exchange program between the Zalarian Empire and Earth. Beginning immediately, 5 Zalarian representatives will travel to your world to learn your ways, while 5 humans will be welcomed here to study ours. It is our hope that this exchange of knowledge will benefit both our peoples. Tanya felt a surge of something she could only identify as hope. The exchange program approved without public debate or extended deliberation. The Queen had made the decision herself. Ambassador Chen of Earth will provide details of the arrangement. The Queen continued, but I have one final announcement. She turned slightly, looking directly at Tanya, who stiffened in surprise. Guard Captain Tanya. Step forward, confused but obedient. Tanya approached. The throne kneeling as protocol required her mind racing. What had she done to warrant this public acknowledgement? Your service in protecting our honored guest has been exemplary, the Queen said, demonstrating the finest qualities of the Imperial Guard. Moreover, your understanding of human culture and temperament has been noted. You are hereby assigned as head of security for the cultural exchange program and will accompany our representatives to Earth to ensure their safety and to serve as cultural liaison. Tanya looked up in shock, unable to maintain her impassive expression. This was beyond anything she had imagined, an assignment off-world to Earth itself. I am honored, Your Majesty. She managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. I will serve the Empire faithfully in this role. You leave in 10 days, the Queen said. Prepare accordingly. Later, as the formal reception continued, Tanya found Lily standing alone on one of the crystal balconies overlooking the capital city, its spires glittering in the light of Zalaria's 3 moons. You knew, she said as she joined the human. Lily smiled. I suggested it to the Queen during our private audience. Yesterday pointed out the advantages of having someone familiar with both cultures. Overseeing security mentioned your exceptional handling of the Purist attack. I may have also mentioned your interest in seeing other worlds. You interfered with Imperial assignments, Tanya said, but without the outrage such an action should have provoked. The human shrugged. Or I recognized talent and suggested an appropriate placement. Isn't that what your genetic assignment system tries to do? Match abilities to roles. Tanya found herself smiling, an expression that felt increasingly natural around Lily. Perhaps there is wisdom in your primitive ways after all. Lily laughed, the sound bright against the crystalline chimes of the palace gardens. I'm looking forward to showing you Earth. Tanya, it's messy, chaotic, beautiful, and surprising. Nothing like the ordered perfection of Zalaria. Tanya looked out at the geometric precision of the capital city, its perfect symmetry and controlled nature suddenly seeming slightly sterile compared to the vibrant descriptions Lily had shared of her homeworld. I'm looking forward to experiencing this chaos, she admitted to seeing with new eyes, as you said earlier. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the moons rise higher in the alien sky. 2 beings from worlds separated by vast gulfs of space technology and culture, yet somehow bridging that distance through something as simple and complex as understanding. The mighty Zalarian Empire had stood for 10,000 cycles, conquering, expanding, bringing dozens of species under its control through superior technology and military might. Yet it had taken a human, a member of a species barely noticed in galactic politics, to teach them a lesson. They had forgotten that sometimes the oldest, simplest ways were still valuable, that nature in all its messy complexity still held wisdom that technology could not replicate. And perhaps, Tanya thought as she glanced at the small figure beside her, there were other forgotten lessons to be learned, other simple truths to rediscover about connection, purpose, and choice. Tanya stood at attention as the royal transport landed on the main platform, her spine straight and stiff, her face revealing no emotion, the way a proper Zalarian guard should behave. The 8-foot-tall alien woman watched as the door slid open. With a soft hiss, this was the moment the entire palace had been preparing for the arrival of the human. She had never seen a human before. No one on Zalaria Prime had. They were a new species in the galactic community, only joining the Council of Worlds 300 cycles ago. Most considered them primitive, dangerous, even with their tendency toward violence and their chaotic, unpredictable nature. But now the mighty Zalarian Empire needed their help, a fact that burned in the stomachs of many proud warriors, including Tanya. The figure that stepped from the transport was smaller than Tanya had expected, barely reaching her shoulder. The human female had skin the color of pale sand and hair that reminded Tanya of the golden fields of Gura grain. Before the blight struck, her body looked fragile, with no protective scales or secondary limbs, just soft flesh that seemed easy to tear. Queen Zara stepped forward, her royal purple robes flowing around her tall form, the ceremonial crown of the Zellarian Empire glittering with precious stones from 100 conquered worlds. "We welcome you to Zellaria, Prime Human." The queen said, her voice formal and cold. The human bowed slightly, a gesture that seemed respectful, yet not subservient. "Thank you for your invitation, Your Majesty. My name is Lily Baker. I bring greetings from Earth and hope that I can be of assistance." Tanya noticed the human spoke clearly without the nervous tremble most species showed when addressing the queen of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. Either the human was very brave or very foolish, perhaps. Both. Queen Zara gestured toward the palace, her lower arms remaining folded in the traditional stance of authority. "Come, the High Council awaits." "Your presentation." Tanya fell into position behind the human as they walked toward the Great Hall, her hand resting on her plasma blade. She had been assigned as the human's security detail, a position considered punishment among the royal guard, but someone had to ensure the alien did not attempt anything dangerous. The human, called Lily, looked around with obvious curiosity, her eyes widening at the floating crystal gardens and the living metal sculptures that lined the walkway. She asked questions about everything they passed. How were the crystals suspended? How did the metal respond to touch? Who had created the massive murals depicting Zellarian battle victories? Each question made Tanya more uncomfortable. Zellarians did not ask questions. They knew, or they learned in silence. Questioning showed weakness, ignorance, yet this human seemed to take pleasure in not knowing. They reached the High Council chamber, where 12 of the most powerful Zellarians sat in a semicircle around a central platform. Tanya took her position against the wall, watching as Lily walked to the center without hesitation. The human stood before them, small yet somehow not diminished by their greater size or status. High Counselor. Vex spoke first, his voice deep and rumbling. "You claim to have a solution to our agricultural crisis, yet your people have existed for barely a blink in cosmic time. What could you possibly know that our scientists with 10,000 years of collective knowledge do not?" Lily smiled, a gesture Tanya found strange given the obvious challenge in the counselor's words. "Sometimes a fresh perspective is valuable," she said, "especially when dealing with something as fundamental as soil and plant life. Earth has faced many agricultural challenges throughout our history, and we've learned some hard lessons." She activated a small device that projected images into the air, pictures of what must be Earth landscapes, some green and vibrant, others brown and desolate. On Earth we once faced similar problems to what you're experiencing now. We called it the Dust Bowl. Farmers had removed natural vegetation, planted the same crops year after year, and used methods that depleted the soil when drought came. There was nothing to hold the earth in place. It simply blew away. The council members watched the images with obvious skepticism, but Queen Zara leaned forward slightly, showing interest. "Our scientists have determined it is a pathogen, not poor farming techniques." High Counselor Vex said, his tone dismissive. "The royal laboratories have identified a bacterial strain that is consuming our crops." Lily nodded. "That's part of it. Yes, but bacteria don't appear from nowhere. They thrive in certain conditions. Usually when an ecosystem is out of balance. I've reviewed the data you sent to Earth and conducted some preliminary soil tests. Since my arrival, your soil lacks biodiversity, essential nutrients, and beneficial organisms that would normally keep harmful bacteria in check." Tanya watched the counselors' faces, saw the mixture of outrage and reluctant interest. The human was suggesting their entire agricultural system was flawed, a system that had fed trillions across 20 star systems for millennia. Queen Zara raised her hand, silencing the murmurs that had broken out. "What do you propose?" Human Lily projected new images showing fields with different plants growing together, systems of water management, and strange constructions. She called greenhouses a threefold approach, she explained. First, introduce companion planting. Certain plants naturally repel the bacteria that are attacking your main crops. Second, implement crop rotation to break the life cycle of the pathogen and restore nutrients to the soil. Third, reintroduce beneficial microorganisms to rebuild your soil ecosystem. Sounds primitive, Counselor Mara said, her voice sharp, like returning to methods from 1,000 cycles ago. We have advanced beyond such techniques. Lily looked directly at the counselor, a breach of protocol that made Tanya tense. Sometimes the old ways work best, especially when dealing with natural systems. Evolution has spent billions of years perfecting these relationships. We ignore them at our peril. The meeting continued for hours as Lily explained her proposals in detail, answering questions with patience and clarity. Despite the increasingly hostile tone from some council members, Tanya found herself impressed by the human's knowledge and her calm in the face of Zilarian intimidation tactics that had made ambassadors from much older species crumble. When the session finally ended, Queen Zara stood. "We will consider your proposal human. In the meantime, you will be given access to our agricultural research facility and testing grounds under supervision." "Of course." Lily bowed again. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I look forward to working with your scientists." As Tanya escorted the human to her assigned quarters, she found herself wondering if this small, fragile-looking creature might actually have the solution that had eluded the Empire's greatest minds. A troubling thought indeed.